Now, you left to take care of your dad. What happened to Mr. Frenchman?
We're very good friends.
Okay.
We're
Well,
still
I
very
would
good
just
friends.
venture to say that
The
he's no
marriage did not,
longer.
the marriage did not last, but
Mm,
we remained friends after we were able to, you know, jump over those hurdles that, when there's a divorce are, as you all know,
mm.
are difficult hurdles to jump over. So once we were able to navigate that process, we became good friends.
Hello and welcome, gentle listeners. You are now tuned in to Kushae Chronicles. I am your host, Kimba the Natural Diva, and I am deliciously proud to have you. This podcast, Kushae Chronicles, highlights the trials, tribulations, and traumas, hopefully not, of all women. We believe that if you have a Kushae, you have a story. So we are here to share the amazing stories of beautiful women who you otherwise would not have met, but you'll be so excited that you do here. Today, I am excited to bring on our guest for the hour, Ms. Myrna White, who is also a very dear friend of mine, a beautiful woman who's been a beautiful supermodel, I believe, some time ago, and she's going to talk to us about her story today. Ms. Myrna White, welcome to Couché Chronicles.
Thank you so much for having me, my darling.
Oh, it's my
You know how much you
pleasure.
mean to me, and Kimba, you are truly a dear friend, and I'm so proud of all of the work that you're doing, and especially the outreach to women like ourselves who so need to hear these stories.
Thank you so much, my love. It's a pleasure to share everyone's stories, and I'm just so excited every time. I learn something new every time. All right, so Ms. Myrna White, we're going to get started with sharing a little bit about yourself. Now, you have so much to talk about, but we're going to zoom in on your amazing career as a model in Paris. This was before the Naomi Campbells of the day, before the Tyra Banks, before the everybody that we know, the Beverly Johnsons. Talk to me a little bit about how you got there. What was the journey from New York to Paris?
It's very interesting and quite a journey, as you mentioned. I was working in New York as a struggling model. Later, then to pursue my modeling and dancing career, moved to LA because that was the happening place. And there I had a love story. It was a love story
Oh,
with a very handsome French man who, in a year's time, captured my heart and invited me to follow him to Paris. He offered
mm.
me a chateau, which I couldn't refuse.
Oh, a chateau, darling, the chateau
However,
life.
however, struggling girl trying to find her career path. Just a little bit about my background. I was born in Harlem, raised in Queens by Cuban immigrants, and
Mm,
they had high hopes for me, and which I later in my life delivered, I hope, and made them proud.
mm,
However, getting back to my little story, I met this gentleman, fell in love with a Frenchman, and off I went to Paris. So
Now, let
that,
me ask you something,
mhm.
because a lot of Black women struggle with widening the net and dating outside of their race. I assume this Frenchman was white. Was he white?
Yes, he was. And quite
Very nice.
honestly, growing up in the 60s, where it was all about black identity and black power, and, it was a very rebellious time. I was in the front line of that. So I had to really be wooed to even consider, dating a white man as opposed to falling in love with one. And
Right, right.
it was truly his pursuit because I was very negative about the idea, nice guy, but and
You were like, power to the people. What's up?
yeah, are you kidding me? Not you, brother. Not brother.
You too, non-brother. Like,
However, he just, through his kindness and perseverance and love, he managed to capture my heart and gave me the opportunity to test the waters. Basically, is what
I
that was.
love that. I love that. I love that. Okay, so we're gonna pause here. I want to make sure that you have your camera video on.
I
I
do.
almost forgot to turn mine on. Yours is good. Okay,
I
cool.
do, but I don't know if the angle is right, but it's on.
That's all right. Yeah. All right. Very good. Cool. All right. So Myrna, thank you so much for sharing that because I think a lot of women struggle. I am recently divorced and I'm thinking, okay, I want to get back in the dating scene. I'm going to widen the net. And so thank you for encouraging me. Now, be honest, we're going to get back to the story, but, there's been some stigma and some conversations around black men versus white men and the things that they possess. Yay or nay? That's all I have to ask.
Well, we can honestly. Okay, let me think about this for a second. How I want to phrase this, because as emotional beings, love has a lot to do with your love making.
Yeah.
However, I was not disappointed, and it is.
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's yays and nays on both sides of that
Oh, for
story.
sure.
And so it was a yay in this particular situation. So you too, baby. We stayed together 12 years, so it was really quite a lovely experience.
I love that. Thank you for being so honest and thank you for sharing. All right, ladies, so widen your net. You never might you never know what you might get. Two yays, boom, two yays. All right, so let's get back. Now, I also have a question about your parents. They were Afro-Cuban immigrants, your beautiful mom and dad. I know you've since lost your dad, but I can't imagine that in the 60s they're excited about you being a model. What were their feelings towards your chosen career? Because Caribbean parents are typically one track minded. They're like, we brought you to this country, go to school and be a nurse, doctor, lawyer, architect, like something big. And mostly they don't believe modeling and any of the arts matters. And so, what were their sentiments before you said, Mom and Daddy, I'm going to Paris to model? Or I don't know, marry this man, this white guy. What were their sentiments around what you were doing with your life?
I think, I kind of gave them a little bit of a triage into my interest because I was a dancer first, and so
Oh,
they knew I was a creative. They didn't like the idea about that either. And so I really had to fight to get they were fine with the dance training, but to make it a profession was out of the question for them.
right.
So I was very rebellious and I went after my dancing career. I took my classes even though they said no. I was grounded all the time.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
so, but that was really what I believe God made me to be. So
Right.
that was a gift which still serves me to this day.
Hmm.
Later, my mother was the one that introduced me to modeling. I guess she gave up with the plights of trying to change my mind.
Couldn't ground you forever.
She tried. I went to the High School of Performing Arts in downtown New York, danced my heart all through that season of my
Mm,
life. And then she was the one that bought my first portfolio for me.
got it.
And I was a young teenager. I don't know if she really thought I was going to pursue the profession, but it was a beautiful gift. And it really introduced me to the world of modeling and photography,
Nice.
so that
I
was
love it.
beautiful. She didn't want me to go to college, though. She said, if anything happens, I want you to make sure you have something, to fall back on. And she wanted me
Right.
to become a journalist. She had preconceived notions for both my brother and I. I was going to be a journalist, and he was going to be a doctor. End of
Did he
story.
end up being a doctor?
No. I guess doctor of IT.
You're
That
like, mm.
not MD, IT. Not
The
quite
computer
what she,
doctor.
not computer, not what she had in mind either. However,
Mm,
he was very successful until his day.
right.
She's very proud of him. And so I went to school for theater, which was not what she had in mind. So I just, but
Thespian.
I think that through my pursuit of what my heart's direction was, like I knew what I wanted, and I was very diligent in pursuing that. And God gave me opportunities that I didn't even dream I could possibly have in my life. She was
Right.
able to come around to my side of the creative table and accept my journey.
Right. I love that.
And
And I
later,
know
she
you're,
saw me on the runways of Paris, and she said, "Well done." And I think I spent
that's my
my
girl.
entire life trying to please my mother.
Oh,
She was one of those, like you say, island moms who have their preconceived notions. And
yeah.
I spent my life trying to make her happy.
Right.
And there came a
Right.
time where I just said, I have to make myself happy first.
Right.
And I
Right. And
think
I
she,
think
I hope
Go
she's,
ahead.
and I hope that she is happy for me through that endeavor, you know.
Oh, I'm sure. And I know your mom is a beautiful at the beautiful age of what is it, 99?
She will be 100 in December.
Oh my gosh. God
Yes,
bless her. She is the
yes,
sweetest little thing. I've not met her, but I just think anybody that gets past 90 is just the cutest little thing. So
yeah.
God bless her. And I'm sure that you continuing to love on her in the pursuit of your own love has pleased her. And she's so blessed to have been here for this long. God bless her. So before we go into the modeling, let's talk a little bit about dancing because we want people to know you ain't pole dancing now. That ain't what's going on around here. That's not how she met the white guy.
No, no, no. I don't even think I could swing around the thing.
I know I can't. Is it
To
the
be
upper body?
perfectly
It's very tough.
honest and not eloquent.
Exactly. I've actually tried pole dancing because it's a great exercise, but I just could not get it together. I don't know if it's my arms aren't strong enough. I can't get it together. Anyway, I'm gonna have to try. So anybody who knows a pole dancer that can help me, we'll figure it out. Anyway, so what type of dancing? What? Because you are just amazing in the dancing. Tell us about dancing and how you got into that.
Well, just a sidebar, pole dancing does require an incredible amount of upper body strength. So
Mm,
that's the secret of that. But I
yes.
went to the School of Performing Arts for modern dance, but I
Nice.
also performed in African dance companies. And while studying at Performing Arts High School, you're introduced to absolutely every single form of dance:
Hmm.
modern, jazz, ballet, East Indian, flamenco. All of those different types of dance disciplines were introduced to us. And
Right.
of course, on my side, I had my neighborhood dance studio, which was tap jazz and all the
Oh
cool
yeah.
stuff. All the cool stuff.
The Sammy Davis Jr. stuff, like, hey.
That's right. That's right. So I was very well equipped within the scope of what the dance world had to offer.
Gotcha.
So I kind of pursued that, but then, at that time, it wasn't lucrative.
Yeah.
Ballet dancers, even if they were prima ballerina in a beautiful dance company, New York City Ballet or something, they weren't compensated well enough to live, you know,
Right.
comfortably.
Right.
So that's why, there's a lot of dancers that had their little side job as a waitress or
Mm.
in order to live. So that's where modeling really took the lead in my life, because although in the beginning it was a struggle, because back then there were so many black models looking for work, but not a
Right.
lot of black opportunities.
Right.
And so back then each designer perhaps had their one token black woman,
Right.
and that was it. So once that slot was filled, you had to keep pounding the pavement until you found an opening, which is
Right.
it was difficult. And I mean, it's a type of profession that you really have to want it. If you don't want it bad enough, you're just not going to make it. And it's
You're
still
not gonna make it.
today, but back there it was even more difficult.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, I'm tall. Excuse me. I'm 5'11", and at the time I was always the tallest, skinniest girl. I lived in New York. My mom was excited about me pursuing modeling. My family rallied around me, but I was like, I think I'm gonna go to college instead because it was tough. It was tough. I did a few little runway gigs and a few little print gigs, and I was like, this is terrible. My sister would force me to eat only rice. I mean, it was just, and I'd be like, I want
Wow,
more than rice. It was rice, lettuce, and a few pieces of chicken. And I'm just
not
like, could I
good.
have more food? I was starving. And you know me now, I'm curvy girl. So I was not meant to be skinny. And
Yes.
so I had just a glimpse and that was just a sliver of an idea of how difficult it is to please the agencies and even get a gig, or to be considered good enough, regardless of how beautiful you are. It depends. The industry has their look of the season, and I got that a lot. I had these big bold eyes, and they're like, "You're beautiful, but that's just not the look right now." And I was just like, "You don't want these eyes, girl." So anyway, so it was tough. So
Yes.
I
It
applaud
is.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
So,
just regarding your curvy figure, you have a fabulous curvy figure. I mean,
no, thank
on the
you.
other hand, has always struggled to keep weight on, which served
Mm.
me in my modeling career. But right now, I see myself in the gym, kind of working to kind of fill out some areas that I like.
You're like
Squats and the
squatting.
like.
You're like, what can I do for these? Like,
Exactly.
about where we
Yes,
are, who we need to be.
times
That's the
have
beautiful
changed
part.
in terms of, really just appreciating Black beauty in all forms,
Yeah,
the Black women in
absolutely.
all forms, yes.
Right. And and every curve and everything.
Absolutely, yes.
So then modeling became this is how I'm going to make money. Dancing can't do it, although I love dancing. And I have to probably say that dancing probably helped you with form and the way you move, but we'll talk a little bit about that. So you meet this Frenchman who whisks you off to the chateau in Paris.
Pas château,
Um,
château, non.
I love it.
Ça n'a
And
pas
you speak
arrivé.
and you speak French, so we'll get you to drop some French words.
Yes.
But you get to France and you don't have family there. So it's like, welcome to your new home. And now what?
Welcome to my new home. I cried.
You're like,
Because I'm walking around Paris and there's absolutely nothing that is familiar to me.
right.
Not the odor, not the architecture, not the people, nothing. So I
Wow.
really felt very a stranger in a strange land.
Fish out of water.
So fish out of water for sure, and so I started to well, let's get the modeling career going, and I started
Mm.
my normal go see tour. And I say that because in New York, what you did is you had your book under your arm and you got dressed and you got your makeup going and you knocked on doors. It's not like today where
Mm.
everything is Instagram and Facebook. It's really
Right.
you take your portfolio. If you're lucky, you have someone allow you to come in and you take a look. They take a look at your pictures and they say yay or nay, and then you leave a
Right.
composite and go on to the next one. My storage is so. So that was the same method I used when I arrived in France.
Mm.
And I didn't do any research. I was in love. I was like, okay, I'm going to Paris.
It sounds
What's
dreamy.
happening? When are the shows? I don't know. Are we doing a pret-a-porter or is it ready to wear or what is it? I don't know. So I just said I'm in love with a fabulous Frenchman who's going to buy a chateau for me. And then here I am. I'm going to model in Paris, hopefully. Worst
Right.
case scenario. And I always go back to this. What's the worst thing that can happen
Mm.
in this adventure? The worst thing that can happen is I go home. It's not going
Right.
to kill me. It's not going to make me sick. So off I went. And of
Right.
course, if it didn't work out, I can always go home.
Right.
So
Now,
I
how old were you at this time?
20.
T- Ah,
I was
20 years old from New
19.
York.
Yes. Hmm.
You packed your bags and was like, I'm out of here. Oh my gosh. That is
Yeah.
very courageous and brave of you. I get it. I
I,
love
th-
it.
I look
20
back
years
and I
old.
think, what was I thinking? My father purchased a car for me for my birthday in October, drove it across country. He said, "Oh, my darling, I'm so happy to give you this car. Do whatever you want with it, right?"
Ooh,
And I
here it
sold it
comes.
to Paris. He said, "That's not what I meant." However, it did come in handy, though. It did come in
You're
handy.
like, I need the cash, Dad. The car's out of here.
Crazy, but he didn't, he just embraced me and said, I'm here if you need anything. However, mom on the other hand was like, you're not going anywhere. Where you think you're going,
Wow.
girl? Where
Right.
do you think you're
Right.
going?
In New York now, she's got New Yorker eyes, and she's like, "What the hell you think you going?
Do
Get
you
your ass back
realize
in this
what I've
house."
done for you so you could be in this country? You're
Oh
supposed to
my
be.
God.
We're first generation Cuban, right? So
Right.
your expectation from my life was to be really taking advantage of all of the opportunities that America had to offer.
Right.
And I thought, great, I'll go to Paris.
You're like, screw this, I'm out. So
But little
20
did
years
I
old. All right,
know.
so you're crying in Paris, oh, just trying to find your way. You grab your lookbook. Is it called a lookbook? What is
A
it called? No, your portfolio.
portfolio. Yes,
You
because
grab your
I
portfolio.
cried because I mean I still had my lover my boyfriend at the time who I
Right.
loved very much and I trusted with my life and my heart.
Right. Right.
However, it was still with this goal to go out and try to become
Hmm.
a model,
Right. Gotcha.
attempt this journey, which was so difficult in America already.
Right. I'm sure. It reminds me of the Josephine Bakers of the world that couldn't
Correct.
get fame and fortune here in the US and had to travel overseas. She ended up, I believe, in France.
Yeah, she was
to
in
find
Paris.
stardom. Yeah, that's right, in Paris, to find stardom and to kick off her beautiful entertaining career. And so it sounds like a little bit of a baby Josephine Baker story here that you went off to Paris. So now, how many no's before you got a yes? Because you got a yes. How many no's do you think you got? Do you know?
I have four no's, which is record
Okay.
breaking for me because I went to
You-
four. No, I take that back. I had more than four no's
Okay.
because I went to several fashion houses,
Yes.
before I was hired. So I
Right.
went to Christian Dior, Ungaro, Yves Saint Laurent,
Mm,
so Nina Ricci, a lot of different houses, and then I would spend the day doing that. So there were quite a few
right.
of those, but that was only over 4 days. On the
Got it.
fifth day, I was walking towards Givenchy, and the director was walking in at the same time. And I was so, I didn't know. I didn't know what they were looking for. I was being my true authentic self. So I was in
Yes.
African attire with my big gele and this fabulous black and white African, caftan kind of thing with my book and my full face. And so she stopped me and she said, "Are you looking for work?" And I said,
Mm.
"Actually, yes, I am." So she then said, "Will you be here for 3 months?" And I said, "Yes, I will." She said, "Can you come back in 2 hours?" Because back then, and I think they probably still do this in Paris, but they have a 2 hour lunch break.
Mm. Oh yeah, that's right. Like a siesta almost. I know Spain
Yes.
has a siesta. Yep.
So I went to lunch and was
Mm.
with my boyfriend and was screaming with excitement. They want to see me, yay! And then I went back and they had me try on several dresses, and it was so interesting because it was like an Audrey Hepburn movie. It was
Mm.
chocolate brown carpet and white walls with ornate moldings and these little ladies with little white coats, and I just thought this is awesome.
And they're buzzing around and fixing
Even,
you up and fluffing and oh,
even if he says
darling.
no, this is still a great experience, right? Even if I don't get the job. So I got in the door, and the director had me try on several outfits. And there was a model in the dressing area. So they had the dressing area, and then in
Mhm.
the next room, the runway with a big circle and all mirrored walls on the side. Beautiful, beautiful
Mm.
showroom. So she she asked me to walk for the third dress. Came back, and they were speaking French, and this other black model is speaking French, and everybody's speaking French, and I'm like, okay, so what are you saying? What's happening?
Right. Your poor American self. You're like, what?
That's when the tears kick in. It's like, what is going on?
You're like,
So
I'm done. I'm fired. I'm fired. I'm fired.
it's a yes or a no.
Right.
So then I asked the black model. I asked her. I said, "So what are they saying?" And she said, "Well, they're saying that they don't need two black models." And she said,
Mm.
"Yes, yes, we do," which I'm forever grateful for because
Oh.
that gave me the opportunity for them to then take me up 2 flights of stairs with 3 women on each side, prepping me and primping me. And then they took me up to see Monsieur de Givenchy. They opened the
Wow.
big French doors. There he was sitting in his white coat, sketching something. And I walked in and he said, "Hello," introduced himself. He said, "Can you please walk for me?" And I said, "Yes." And I walked for him and he said, "Go down and sign your contract."
Wow. Givenchy,
So I'm
darling.
so my feet are not even touching the floor at this point. I'm just thinking, what's happening? What's happening? Lots of French and little ladies in white coats, and I have a
Oh
contract.
my gosh. With one of the biggest names. I mean,
Yeah,
hello. One
yeah,
of
it
the
was
biggest. To this
it was
day, one of the biggest. What an
amazing.
honor. What an honor. But let's back up to the beautiful queen who was not afraid to advocate for you and not afraid to lose any of her value and everything that she had earned to include you, to say we do need two black models, because she could have easily said, you're right, I'm enough, tell this little girl to kick rocks. She said yes.
And that's what I think was very remarkable, particularly around that time
Mm.
because everyone's trying to vie for their own position,
Yeah,
and
you get one black
they get
girl,
one
pretty much.
shot,
I
and each
know.
one of those places whose doors I knocked on had their one black model.
Right.
And she was amazing and very generous because that was her job security. I mean, he could have said, "I'll take her, you go." And her name was Munya.
Munya.
Munya was a very, very, very successful model who
Mm.
was Yves Saint Laurent's muse. So
Wow.
she left Givenchy. She left me there.
Ah, but she passed the crown,
And
right? So,
she passed it. She passed the
yes.
torch, which was so generous. And she went to Yves Saint Laurent after one season, so we
Mm.
had one season together. But we walked the runways all over together. But
Right.
I represented Givenchy, she represented Yves Saint Laurent. Yeah,
Oh, but it's like sisters coming home. You're like, hey, boo, that's your girl,
it was
Munya. God
amazing.
bless you, Munya. I'm sure she's still around. Hopefully, she's
She
still
is.
here.
She's in Martinique. She's from Martinique,
Wow.
and if I was to ever see her again, I really have to thank her because I would have never, my career wouldn't have launched at Givenchy had it
Right.
not been for her. You know.
Exactly. So shout out to Munya. Anybody that knows Munya, send her this podcast. Big shout out, big love, big kisses. We want to
Call.
see you.
I'm on Instagram, Munya. Look for me, baby. I'll look for you too.
Call her. So we talk about this career launching because of advocacy and because of your fearlessness also to go out and pound on doors in a strange city, in a strange land, just with love in one pocket and hope in another. Talk to me about how far you went with Givenchy.
I was Givenchy's house model for 2.5 years,
Mm,
but while working for him, which meant working 1 hour
mm.
Monday through Friday to show the
Right.
collection to buyers.
Wow. Okay.
Because
So you had to be there.
yeah,
Buyers would come for what? Just retailers and blah, blah, blah. And right.
exactly. Now there
Okay.
was a press show. There's of course the launch of the season. It's a
Mm.
press show with all of the buyers that come out, all of the celebrities come to see the new
The
collection,
press.
the press and
Right.
so forth. Yes, so that's a really grand moment, and all the models fly in from all over.
Hmm.
So and then so while I was working in that environment, I met quite a few models who didn't really speak English, but we started building a relationship, and
Right.
they would just write down addresses. Here, go here, Myrna. Go here, go here, and
Oh.
it would be go-sees castings,
Right.
and they really I was very supported. It's really remarkable when I look back
Mm.
at it,
Right.
because they really were very helpful, very generous with their time, very generous with their contacts and relationships.
Hmm.
Kind of hold on to you. I'm not gonna
Right. You're like,
take
I earned
my
these.
spot.
So I earned these. Good luck,
Yes.
girl.
So it was amazing. It was amazing.
Right. And you don't see that a lot. And I think that's unfortunate, in so many industries where I would say both men and women, but I think unfortunately there's this feeling that women tend to be catty or they don't tend to be supportive of one another. And I'm hoping that through the things that we're doing, through Kushae Chronicles and the stories that we're telling, that we can continue to support one another because we do that, right? And this is a beautiful example of, maybe it wasn't back in New York when you first started, but it certainly was something that you found overseas and that women sort of galvanized together and supported each other and wanted to see each other win, which was beautiful. So, talk about some of the countries that you visited and walked and some of the challenges that you had as a model.
Well, if I just like to add a little tidbit on what you
Sure.
just mentioned.
Sure.
It was very interesting because we are very competitive, black
Hmm.
and white alike. And
Yeah.
so um, it was very unlikely. It was a very unlikely experience for me.
Mm.
It was very atypical, because it was a very cutthroat industry. It was a very controlling, male-dominated industry in terms of dealing
Mm.
with photographers. And, photographers wanted you to pay for your success in ways that you didn't want to particularly be involved
Woof.
with, as most of you already know, someone will ask you to sleep with them for fame, and that
Mm.
happened quite a bit. I never did, I'm proud to say. But I've had photographers, when you're asking me about challenges, I've had photographers tell me, I'll put you on the cover of Vogue if you sleep with me, you know,
Wow.
and of course I declined that offer, you know, but thanks, nope.
Yeah.
But there are women that do, and that exists then and it exists today, you know,
I'm
because you
sure.
know there's always that manipulation of the feminine, uh,
Of course.
of the true feminine, you know. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that was the impetus of some of the Me Too movement, right? Like, hey,
exactly,
listen, I've been in entertainment and I've been compromised in so many ways that I'm not proud of because I was told that if I do this, then I get that. And so it's exactly what it was then, like you said, and it continues today, which is, just terrible and disgusting.
it's true, yes, you know.
Yeah.
But I was about to switch to French, but in spite of that, you know, I was able to. My season consisted of showing the collection
Hmm.
in a circuit. So I
Okay.
showed the collection. I had my clients in Paris, in Italy, in Spain,
Hmm.
in Germany, and in England. So I would
Right.
do Paris, and I do that, follow that circuit twice a year.
Okay, gotcha.
In
I love
addition to
that.
that, I worked for a choreographer who put very elaborate stage productions together, and they would have contracts with different designers. And some of those would be, you know, Karl Lagerfeld, Chanel, you know,
Mm.
it was some of the grand greats.
Yes, le grand, les
Les,
grands.
les,
How do
les
you say?
grands, les grands, grands.
Look
You
at me.
know,
I got like two French words that I know, girl.
and through that choreographer, we worked with a designer in Turkey whose name
Mm,
is Vako, and so I presented his collection in Turkey multiple times as well.
nice, nice.
And we had the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce of Haute Couture put together a vignette of a selected few designers that they would hope to highlight throughout the season. And
Mm,
so it would be 3 or 4 designers, and we would take them to a cluster of countries. So in one season, we went to um, a show in Cairo, Saudi
mm.
Arabia, um, Singapore, and
Wow,
Japan.
wow. Do you remember the places? What was your favorite place? What was your favorite show?
Oh my goodness. You know, every time I was on the runway, I just couldn't believe that I was on the runway, you know,
Wow.
because I would feel so wonderful, and I couldn't
Right.
believe that this was my life, you know. So
How
all of them
amazing.
really brought something very special to my existence, to my heart, to my talent,
Right.
and to the history that I have to share now, you know, to the
Right.
young ones,
Exactly.
you know. So to be able to
So
be
you're
able
not picking favorites?
I okay, so some of the favorites.
Hmm.
We presented a show with the choreographer. The choreographers were Norbert Schmidt and Bernard Trux. They were
Mm,
French and
okay.
German, and each stage presentation was an elaborate stage set. Sometimes it
Mm.
was in the round, sometimes it was a runway, sometimes it was a plexiglass runway with multi levels. So you walk on one, you step up to another, you step up to another. But there
Ooh.
was one that had, sometimes we have fake birds on arms. It's
You a
very,
parrot?
very creative, I'm telling you. But it was very theatrical, was
Yeah.
why they were so successful.
Right.
And there was one stage presentation, one show that the stage was framed in a picture frame, which was off
Mm.
kilter, so kind of Dali-esque, you know.
Ah, nice. Yes, leaning, just
Leaning.
leaning.
And the stage had a slope that went down towards the back. So if you're front of the stage, so the intention was that we creeped up on the stage, and it looked like we were way coming from further
So
back.
far, so you're small, and then you
You're
get
small
bigger.
and you got bigger as you approached the
Wow.
audience. So we, as well, had to climb up on our knees and get hunched down, and as we were walking, just kind of grow and to our true size, you know.
Right.
But
How
it was
beautiful that must have looked on film because it's like you see this little speck
outstanding.
of a person, and then it's like they get bigger. It's like they get live form as they get closer. How create, how beautiful, and what for me, it's combining everything that you've ever loved. It's theater, it's modeling, and I would even say just the moves and maybe all the ways is a little bit of dance form. Like
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
just find it's so fortunate for you to have found something that you loved and all the things that you love put together. I just what how wonderful is that? Just
It
wonderful.
really was outstanding. It was outstanding.
Mm,
And I remember when I was in rehearsal for a show, and it was for Philippe Vinet, who was Givenchy's partner.
yes.
And we were in rehearsals, and I walked down to the end of the stage, and I had this beautiful white evening gown on. There was this huge mirror on the wall,
Hmm.
facing the runway. And I went down to the end, and I just looked in the mirror, and it was a song, an old song. If my friends could see me now was the
Yes.
title, and we were rehearsing to that, and I just got so teary. I posed at the end of the runway, and I just thought, if my friends could see me now, could you believe it?
Can you
I mean, I
believe
didn't
it?
even know how to dream the life. I didn't know how to pray for the life I had, really.
Right.
I really
Right.
didn't. It was just that remarkable.
Oh my gosh. You literally you said something. I mean, we talked a couple days ago about, your journey and your story, and you said something that I thought was so powerful. You said I literally had the opportunity to walk around the world.
Yes.
And I was like, "Oh, take me with you."
It was truly that. It was
Right.
truly that. On the
Literally.
runways, city after city.
City
Yeah,
after
and,
city
and meeting
all across the world.
incredible people, traveling extensively and experiencing the fun of each culture, and then also the difficulties of each country too. I
Right.
mean, there were times, we have to respect the cultures in these places. We went to
Yes.
Saudi Arabia, we had to cover up. We couldn't
Hmm.
have our shoulders showing or our knees showing. Yeah, they were just, it was just that interesting.
I love it. I love it. So, how long was your career? Because models don't last forever. We know that. And it's not that you guys don't last, but the careers tend to be short-lived because it's like athletes. They get you in, they use you up, and then they get you out of there.
Although, although today's times have changed a little bit, as you may know, there's a resurgence of the more mature model because there's a
Yes.
market for those women because they are the ones that are purchasing the clothing, right?
Yeah,
So,
the boomers. There's enough boomers out here with money, and they're like, we got to get some folks that look like the boomers so that they can
exactly.
resonate.
So, my career was 12 years in Paris. I went for three
Wow.
months and I stayed for 12 years.
Wow.
And I guess I liked it.
That's
I suppose it worked out well.
I
Yes,
guess
it
it kind of sort of worked out for you. And then obviously you learned French. You're fluent in French.
Yes, and I
Yes,
worked with some
that's
other models, Sandy Bass, Munya. I mean, there were quite a few models that I had a great opportunity to work with.
right.
I walked with Patty Cleveland in a couple shows. It was just amazing. And these are women
Yeah,
that I looked up to before even arriving in Paris. So.
right.
And then when I returned to the States, I returned to the States because of my father's illness.
Mm,
He was very sick, he had cancer,
okay.
and so I decided to stay with my mother. And so I
Mm,
had to reestablish myself, redefine myself here in America. And it was because I had been gone so long, it was like being a stranger in my own country and a stranger in Paris, right, in France. So
wow.
it's like the passport didn't matter, It was
No, now there's this duality of both worlds. You're like,
exactly.
this is not me, and then the other place is not me, and you're like a stranger in both worlds, which is crazy.
Yes, it took a while to integrate back into, it was a culture shock into this
Right.
culture.
Back into
Although
American life.
although familiar, but something I hadn't lived in a while, So,
Yeah.
but then I continued my career here in America, and I worked in South Beach, South Beach, so different than Paris.
So different. And welcome to Miami. I mean, everything's different, right? The culture, the speed at which they move, the foods, the language. Now you're like, oh, I need to learn. I need to go back to knowing Spanish. I'm sure your parents spoke Spanish, but here you are, a fluent French, Afro-Cuban.
There was also the fact that, a lot of, contrary to New York, where you work directly with a lot of designers, you
Yeah.
know, in Miami, you're working with the stores, Neiman Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue. You know, some
Mm,
designers there, some designers on Worth Avenue, but comparatively speaking, there is just there's no similarity. You know.
right. There's no design houses out there. It's just, yeah, and I guess most of the fashion houses are based in these bigger, globally known metropolises like New York and London, Paris, and maybe
Correct.
even Tokyo or, wherever else we might find them. So Miami's trying, child, but it's a little different.
I mean, I managed to remain employed, but it was a culture shock. You know, it was
Yeah,
just it was it kind of deflated my bubble a little bit because
I know. It's okay.
the expectation was it couldn't meet any of my expectations
No.
based on my
Ah,
past experience. So at that time, I decided that I was going to perhaps go take a different approach to it and work behind the scenes.
right.
And so I worked as director of the runway division for Irene Marine Modeling Agency for
Nice.
several years. And
Right.
so in that, I recruited new talent, I developed new talent. You know, I sent them
Mm,
to Italy and Paris for, um, you know, a good opportunity to work and get tear sheets and just to kind of help them get accustomed to or become accustomed to the industry. You know,
right.
learn the ins and outs because you know when you go abroad, then you become more recognized. Then you
Yeah,
get your tear
exactly.
sheets, and then you come back to America, and you've worked with Armani and designers and so forth of that, and Elle magazine. You come back,
Mm,
you have working credentials. You know, you've had
right.
experience that is invaluable in New York or the American market.
Oh, of course. I mean, I'm sure you were like, darling, I worked for Givenchy. What's the problem? It's like you feel like it should carry some weight, but they're like, all right, so you want Neiman Marcus and Nordstrom's? And you're like, ah, darling, ah.
Nailed it.
You're like,
And I don't
what
want
do
to
you
sound
mean?
unappreciative, but it was just no comparison.
Exactly. You're like, I'll call you back.
What do you mean I have to bring my own shoes? What?
You're like, call Givenchy. I need to speak with him real quick. My
Yes.
boo, okay? I
Yeah.
mean, so it's laughable now, but I'm sure you were just like, okay, the world that I once knew is not the world that I know now. But kudos to you for learning how to pivot and continuing to stay true to who you are and aligned with what you love. Because some people would have been like, forget it, I'm out of here, I'm doing something else. But, I'm so proud that you continue to find your way, whether it was modeling adjacent or modeling behind, you know what I mean? It was like, I'm going to be in this circle some way, somehow, because this is what I fought for. This is what I did for so many years. This is what I loved. And this is kind of what got me to this point. Now, you left to take care of your dad. What happened to Mr. Frenchman? Hmm.
We're very good friends.
Okay.
We're
Well,
still
I
very
would
good
just
friends.
venture to say that he's no longer.
The marriage did not last, but
Mm,
we remained friends after we were able to, you know, jump over those hurdles that, you know, when there's a divorce, are, you know, as you all know, you know,
mm.
are difficult hurdles to jump over. So once we were able to navigate that process, we became good friends.
That's good. That's
And
good. But I mean, we have to
he
give him
was the
some
love of my
credit.
life. I loved this man. I mean,
Yeah.
he was white, but he was the love of my
But
love.
he was right, girl. I love
He was
it.
right. What can I say? It was white, but he was right.
And no
he
shame.
he
Listen,
he
we love
loved me
love.
so much, and I loved him so much, and it was the
Mm,
love that I had never experienced before or prior.
right.
It was
And that's the
amazing love,
ticket. Yeah, that's the goal.
amazing
Yeah.
love.
And I want to encourage women to pursue love in ways that you've never had because it exists, right? When somebody makes you the priority and it's apparent to everybody, that's the kind of love that you want. I think so many times we settle for what looks like love and don't know that we deserve so much more. And when I'm talking, yeah, I'm talking to me too.
I hear you, baby. We have this over a cup of tea.
Oh yeah,
We
for
have
sure.
this
You know me.
conversation.
I stay like, ooh, what's next? I'm always on this adventure of finding, a great fit. And so I do love love. And so don't give up on love, ladies. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Divorce, not divorce, broken, whatever. Don't give up on love. So that's that. I can see it now. There'll be a quote that I said something about love. But anyway, I love it.
Yes.
All right. So as we wrap up, because this has been an amazing episode, we got
Thank
such juicy
you.
gems from you and your journey in your life. Oh, and you look at you artsy with your background. It's so beautiful.
I wish I could say I painted this, but I haven't reinvented myself to that degree yet.
I know. Well, listen, you're creative enough, so it's a beautiful thing.
Mm.
Now, what would you say, because you are more mature than maybe I am, a little bit older, and you've been able to do some of the things that you still love. You've been still been able to dance. I know you've been dancing a little bit, but ballroom dancing has still continued to be a passion of yours, and you're amazing at that with the costumes and the. Y'all should see this baby. Lord have mercy, she's
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
And but life looks different for you. Do you have any advice for women like myself who are still raising children at home? I mean, your children are grown and your daughter lives in France now. Your son is on his own, doing big guy things. Any advice for women who are just trying to find their way? Because I think you fought the good fight to find your way, regardless of what people felt.
Where's my
Just what?
Kleenex?
You're like, oh, ladies.
You don't know.
What
Good
would you
advice.
say to those of us who are saying, I want to pursue my passions or I'm stuck? Just what advice would you give us?
I think, when you look at your past, just look at your accomplishments and to realize and never forget that if you did it then you can do it again. Life is like is a book of many chapters, right?
Mm,
And so sometimes transitioning from one chapter to the other is a bit difficult, but we constantly reinvent ourselves.
yeah,
We are women who are strong, who are nurturers, who have had the opportunity to gain great educational opportunities
right,
and really just pave our way, right?
yeah,
So we can't forget those that came before us so that we can have these opportunities to reinvent and pursue forward. Don't be afraid. Don't have the paralysis of analysis.
yeah,
Just step out the boat and just really focus on what you really want. And sometimes that's the
right,
hardest thing for women because we
yeah,
gain our identities through our marriages, through our children. I'm at a season in my life where I'm, retired, I'm single, I'm
mm,
looking for my next path, and we just have to not be afraid to leap, just
right,
yeah, look at what you want, our what do they call it? Our to-do list or our, what is it called when you have a bucket list? The
a
bucket
bucket list, yes,
the bucket list is not over with. It's not empty,
mm.
you know. I haven't seen the Northern Lights yet. I haven't written my book yet. And
Ah,
I think there are things that I still want to do, but I also want to give back.
right,
Because I feel that giving helps to fulfill me in ways that nothing else can. So the advice I
right.
give you is
I love it.
be true
Thank
to
you so
yourself.
much.
Be true to your authentic self. And
Yes.
never stop dreaming and don't let fear be a part of your language at all.
Right. I love that. And I would add, don't let anybody else tell you what your dreams should be.
That's right.
I think we all know, but like you said, it's fear that separates those who pursue their dreams from those who don't. So I love it. Thank you, my darling. How beautiful was this?
I
I
love you
enjoyed
so
you.
much, Kimba.
I love you to pieces, to the moon and back, darling.
Yes.
So I want to wrap up this episode by saying thank you so much again for being here with me, for sharing your journey with the thousands and millions of viewers and listeners that we'll have.
Thousands and
And
millions. Wait. I have some more things I have to
let's
say.
start over. Let's go back.
Thank you so much for listening. It's been wonderful to share a little snippet of my story with all of you. I hope that there are women young and old that listen to this because every little bit can help us find a little bit of inspiration to carry us all the way through our journey. So It's been
Exactly.
delightful to speak with you.
Thank you so much. And ladies, if you don't know, this woman, like I said, she's a little bit more mature. She's retirement age. We're not going to drop the age, but let's just say she is gorgeous for her age. Definitely, I would say over 60. That's all I'm going to say.
That's all I'm saying too, because I don't know who might be listening to this. Maybe it might not be only women. They
They'll be
might
like, she
need
lied on her profile.
they might need this for something else.
We will. So, anyway, we're going to wrap. But thank you so much for being here with us, gentle listeners, for another episode of Kushae Chronicles. Tune in next time. We'll be talking to amazing women with real talk, real women, and always real health. Oh, wait, we forgot. Wait a minute before we wrap. We've got Kushae Catastrophes. Oh, how could we forget? So, Kushae Catastrophes is our mini segment where we invite our guests to share a little extra something around a Kushae catastrophe. Now, maybe your Kushae, aka, intimate health, hasn't had catastrophic situations, although we probably all have. Like, let's be honest. But I invite you to answer a question that I might have around a Kushae catastrophe. So, Ms. Myrna White, are you ready?
I don't know. I know you, Kimba. Am I ready?
You're ready. Don't worry. All right. So you talked about your beautiful mother who's now turning 99. And one of the questions that I ask guests a lot is growing up, many of us never talked about sex or intimacy with our mothers. We just couldn't. I couldn't. It was just not something that we were talking about. The generations these days, I think, are doing a little bit better, which kudos to them. But we were in the dark, y'all. We didn't have no YouTube, no nothing. So we were just trying to figure it all out. What is one thing that you could have, even at this age, never asked your mother about?
Well, when I asked my mother about sex, she said, just make sure you know what you're doing. And that's all she told me.
You're like, that's why I'm asking.
And I thought, thanks.
You're
Is that
like,
is there
so,
a
but
question?
what?
I mean, I couldn't ask my mother about sex at all.
Right.
Not at all.
She
I
was
don't
not
think
willing to
she
answer.
would provide me with any tools or information that would be helpful. I don't
Right.
think that she would have it within her to share
Hmm.
that vital information with me. The one thing I would say that I've learned, just because you were talking about my age and so forth, is
Hmm.
that sorry, is there's a myth about women and sexuality as they get older.
Right.
And women have I mean, there's a study from Stanford that talks about women and their sexuality in their 60s and how there's a resurgence where there's the
Hmm.
lead libido that's off the chart and the desires that are sometimes insatiable. So,
Oh, come on, ladies over 60.
I mean, there are a lot of myths about women as we get older. There's a lot of myths and misunderstandings about women's sexuality as a whole. People don't want to discuss it. It becomes something that's
Hmm.
taboo, and
Yeah.
we're here to fend for ourselves, just to make sure that people are aware of our own sexual needs and desires. Even there
Right.
are men that don't. It's all run by what their desires are. So
Right.
that has nothing to do with what my mother taught me, but I can share that story because that's where I am now.
Right. No, I think that's helpful. I think that people feel like when women go through menopause, they dry up, their lives are over. I'm just like, what?
Not
That is nothing to do with any of their vitality. It happens to be about their reproductive organs doing one thing less, like producing hormones less,
true.
but that does not mean that things are still not working and the plumbing's not doing what it needs to do.
Right.
So we are encouraged. Okay.
We're alive and well, yes, at all
Yeah.
ages.
Hey.
Mhm.
So, so ladies, just know that there's life after menopause. Okay, very good. And trust me, there are dating sites after menopause. My mom found, a boo thing after 65. I mean, there's just they're out here doing some things. So there's another chapter to be written in your book, and I encourage you to continue to write. Keep
Thank
going, ladies. So thank you so much, Ms. Myrna White. We're going to finally wrap. So ladies and gentlemen, gentle listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Kushae Chronicles. I hope that you'll join us again for real talk, real women, and real health. Until next time, bye now.
Bye bye.